Good day everyone, I am John Renzreño.
And I'm Jimal Retardo.
And we are the reporters of Chapter 10.
Chapter 10, Creating a Positive School Culture. Here are the learning outcomes. At the end of this chapter, you should be able to explain the meaning of school culture, discuss how school culture affects learning, and cite ways by which you can contribute to the building of positive culture. Introduction. School culture matters. This influences to a great extent how well students perform. School culture is creation of all the people in the school and in the community, especially that of the school heads. It can be positive or negative. It can facilitate or adversely affect learning. The school community must therefore strive to create a positive culture. Here are the 12 norms of school culture where people and programs improve. First is collegiality. Similar challenges and needs with different talents and knowledge. Don't be afraid, people are on your side. Be just as concerned with others as you are with yourself. Learn from them and be confident you have knowledge to share too. Work together on significant projects. Second, experimentation. You should feel encouraged by administrators, colleagues to experiment with new ideas and techniques because that's how teachers grow and improve. Third is high expectation. Each teacher should be held accountable. All should be expected to practice collegiality and to experiment new ideas. Fourth, trust and confidence. Support from administrators. Demonstrate commitment to the work and student success. Fifth is tangible support. Colleagues give of their time and their resources. Effective feedback regarding evaluations, professional growth. Not afraid to ask questions for the sake of learning. 6. Reaching out to the knowledge base. This school wants us to continue growing as teachers. This school wants me to observe others. Appreciation and recognition. Good teaching is honored and recognized. Recognition is meaningful whether large or small. 8. Caring, celebration, and humor. We take time to show our care for each other. We are there for each other in good times and challenges times. We recognize each other's personal lives. 9th, involvement in decision making. People take time to listen. I don't make all decisions, but my input is important and heard. 10. Protection of what's important. Our priorities are established. Our time is valued and there are strategies in place to protect that time. 11th, traditions. Our calendar is exciting as it celebrates our school. School events feel refreshing and I live feeling I belong to a special community. 12. Honest, open communication. Communication shows mutual respect. Communication shows appreciation for all. Communication does not equal put-downs. Communication is offered when it needs to be, but not just for the sake of participating. Read the following episodes, then identify which norm of school culture is illustrated. Number 1. When high school students arrive for pre-calculus class, they know exactly what to expect. Projected on the screen are clear instructions for the day's success starter. Everyone is expected to work on them successfully. Number 2. You might not reach an answer today. You might not reach an answer tomorrow. Struggle is okay. Students know that by the third day, they will be expected to present their understanding and problem-solving strategy to the class. Number 3. You have a short memory. She replies with a kind smile. You say this every time we tackle a problem. Remember the last time you struggled and then overcame your confusion? Remember our norms that we had worked together. One of them was growth mindset And remember, I am here for you. Number 4. I hear some student talking while someone is reciting. I don't think you will like that if you are the one reciting. Can we agree on a rule? Give a rule. Students suggest, let's keep quiet and listen when someone is reciting. Raise your hand if you want to recite. Teachers ask, can we keep this rule? Number 5. Today you are going to compute your scores of classes standing, written quizzes, seat work, performance tasks, homework. These were all corrected and returned to you. When you are done, compare your total with mine. Should there be discrepancy, be ready to show your correct papers. Number 6. During the first week of school, Barb teacher asked her 6th graders 2 questions. What questions do you have about yourself? And what questions do you have about the world? The students begin enumerating their questions. Can they be about silly, little things? Asked one student. If they're your questions that you really want answered, they're neither silly nor little, replies the teachers. After the student lists their individual questions, teachers organizes the students into small groups where they share lists and search for questions they have in common. After much discussion, each group comes up with priority list of questions, rank ordering the questions about themselves and those about the world. Back together in a whole group session, teacher solicits the group's priorities and works towards consensus for the class combined list questions. These questions become the basis for guiding the curriculum in the class. One question: will I live to be 100 years old? Expound educational investigation into genetics, family and oral history, actuarial science, statistics and probability, heart disease, cancer and hypertension. The student had the opportunity to seek out information from family members, friends, experts in various fields, online computer services and books, as well as from the teacher. She described what they had to do as becoming part of a learning community. According to teacher, we decide what are the most compelling intellectual issues, devise ways to investigate those issues. Number 7, the sense of community is strong, even palpable, but this sense didn't just spring full-blown from being a group of people occupying the same place at the same time. It was built upon many small and specific moments of learning the same verses to songs and sharing traditions, memories of times together and stories often told. Some of our traditions are once-a-year events. Some happen every week or even every day. They give us ways to greet each other, to learn about each other, to sing and celebrate and say goodbye. These events mark our comings and our goings and affirm our common interest in the time we spend together. Number 8, because they treasure health, sanitation, and self-discipline, St. Bernadette Catholic School includes the following in their canteen policies. Foods that will not be sold: full-fat pastry items, chocolate confectionery, lollies, potato chips, cream-filled buns, soft drinks, high caffeine drinks, drinks containing guarana or caffeine, deep-fried food of any description, Claygo, clean as you go. Number 9. The teacher wrote, "Nice job" on my sketch of an orange. I knew very well that my smudge mess of an orange wasn't a nice job. It wasn't even a decent representation of any fruit known to a man. I would have benefited by her telling on me I could do to make it better. Maybe something like, "We are learning about perspective. Try adding a shadow behind your sketch." Her nice job told me little about how improve. Knowing I received deserved praise lessen the impact or praise when it is truly earned. Number 10. Teacher past remarks. I like to attend that CPD seminar. I like to hone my teaching skills and update my PCK or pedagogical content knowledge. 11. Good teaching is honored in this school. 12. My school head protects my academic time. She keeps meeting time to the minimum. Let's proceed to analysis. Let's analyze. Number 1. Which of the 12 elements of a positive culture were illustrated by the given episode vignettes? Which element was illustrated by describing opposite? Number 2. Is there any element left out? If there is, can you as a group supply an episode or a vignette? A vignette is a short description of an episode in school like the 9 given above. Let's proceed to abstraction. Let's conceptualize. 11 in the first part of this chapter give a concrete picture of a positive school culture. In Vignette 1, the norm of school culture illustrated is high expectation. For number 2, the norm of school culture illustrated is honest and open communication. For Vignette 3, the norm of school culture illustrated are tangible support, caring, celebration, humor. In Vignette 4, the norm of school culture illustrated involvement in decision-making, protection of what is important. In Vignette 5, the norm of school culture illustrated trust and confidence traditions. In Vignette 6A, the norm of school culture illustrated is collegiality, honest, open communication. In Vignette 6B, the norm of school culture illustrated is collegiality, experimentation, reaching out to the knowledge base, appreciation, recognition. For Vignette 7, the norm of school culture illustrated is collegiality and traditions. In Vignette 8, the norm of school culture illustrated is tangible support, protection of what is important and tradition. In Vignette 10, the norm of school culture illustrated is reaching out to the knowledge base. In Vignette 11, the norm of school culture illustrated is appreciation and recognition. In Vignette 12, the norm of school culture illustrated is protection of what is important. Item number 9 does not illustrate positive culture, especially honest and open communication. After having read the vignettes, by this time, you have an idea on what school culture is. All of the vignettes are manifestation of school culture. The meaning of school culture. According to Skene, 1985, school culture is one of the most complex and important concepts in education. It generally refers to the beliefs, perceptions, relationships, attitude, and written and unwritten rules that shape and influence every aspect of how a school functions. However, the term also encompasses more concrete issues such as the physical and emotional safety of students, the orderliness of classrooms and public spaces, or degree to which a school embraces racial, ethnic, linguistic, and cultural diversity. According to Spassi, school culture consists of the norms and shared experiences that involve over school's history. In fact, Scott and Marzano 2014 state that school culture is reinforced by norms, expectations, and traditions, including everything from dress codes to discipline system to celebration of achievement. Therefore, it may be described as the character of school that gives a school qualities beyond its structures, resources, and practices. They are built through the everyday business of school life. It is the way business is handled that both forms and reflects the culture. It is according to Sophia J. 1985. So school culture has become a central concept in many efforts to change how school operate and improve educational results. While a school culture is heavily influenced by its institutional history, culture, and shape social patterns, habits, and dynamics that influence future behaviors, which could become an obstacle to reform and improvement.
For example, if a faculty culture is generally dysfunctional, if interpersonal tension and distrust are common problems are rarely addressed or resolved, or staff members tend to argue or more than they collaborate or engage in productive professional discussions, it is likely that these cultural factors will significantly complicate or hinder any attempt to change how the school operates.
Next is the culture as a social construct. Culture is a social construct, not a genetic construct. This means that school culture is therefore something that we do not inherit or pass on through the genes. Rather, it is something that we create or shape. It is shaped by everything that all people in the school see, hear, feel, and interact with. It is a creation of all the school head, teachers, parents, non-teaching staff, students, and community. Sin Slade 2014 elaborates. Within a couple of minutes of walking into school or a classroom, you can tell, define, almost taste the culture that permeates that space. It is an often sharing environment, or it is rigid discipline, defined playing fields. It is safe and welcoming, or intimidating and comforting. Does it welcome all voices, or does it make you want to shrink? It is waiting for instruction and leadership, or it is self-directed with a common purposes.
So when we say culture as a social construct, it develops within a society or group. They don't represent objective reality, but instead are meaningful only because people within the society or group accept that they have meaning. Simply put, social constructs do not have inherent meaning. The only meaning they have is the meaning given to them by the people. For example, the idea that pink is for girls and blue is for boys is an example of social construct related to gender and the color of the items. The collective perception that a particular color can be associated with a certain gender is not an objective representation of truth or fact. Instead, it is a social convention that came to have meaning within the context of society. School climate and school culture. How does school climate differ from school culture? These terms are frequently used interchangeable, but school climate is more relational. It is illustrated by the attitudes and behaviors of the school staff and is focused on the style of the school's organizational system. School climate refers to the school effect on students, including teaching practices, diversity, and the relationships among administrators, teachers, parents, and students. School climate is driven by the reflected in daily relations of staff, administration, faculty, student support staff, and outside community. School culture is a deeper level of reflection of shared values, beliefs, and traditions between staff members. School culture refers to the way of teachers and the other staff members work together and the set of beliefs, values, and assumptions they share. School culture is a broader term and so is inclusive of the school climate. School climates are shared norms that draw students and teachers to love the school and make them want to be part of it. It refers to the school's effect on students, including diversity, teaching practices, and the relationships among administrators, teachers, parents, and students. School culture refers to how the school and teachers work together and the set of values, beliefs, and assumptions they share. Positive school culture and climate improves student ability to learn. There is a distinction between the two, with the school culture being viewed from the anthropological perspective and the school climate begins seen from the psychological standpoint. Culture is comprised of the values and norms of the school, while climate is viewed as behavior. Next is the role of culture in learning. School culture matters. Research confirms the central role of culture to school success. School culture can be positive or negative or toxic. A positive school culture fosters improvement, collaborative decision making, professional development and staff, and student learning. A negative culture fosters the opposite. So the role of culture in learning is that the influences how we see the world, how we see the community that we live in, and how we communicate with each other. Being a part of a culture influences our learning, remembering, talking, and behaving. Therefore, culture determines to the great extent the learning and the teaching styles also. Teachers are most important aspect of culture-based learning as they should work towards motivating students to achieve not only academically but also socially, culturally, psychologically, and spiritually. The influences of cultural environment are necessary for the educators because of its role in learning. They need to find mechanisms to incorporate cultures and languages in their teaching practices. There are 12 norms of school culture. The culture norms listed can be supported where they exist and built where they do not by leaders and staff. The degree to which these norms are strong makes a huge difference in the ability of school improvement activities to have a lasting or even any effect. Building these norms depend equally on teachers' will and commitment since good leadership alone cannot make them strong. But without such leadership, culture cannot begin to grow or be expected to endure. While we discuss this norm from the teacher's point of view, because teachers are culture shapers, it is important to bear in the mind that there is a student culture as well. The same 12 norms apply to the culture of the school for the students, but they are a direct reflection of what adults are capable of modeling among themselves. The first elements of a positive culture is collegiality. The school atmosphere is friendly. You work in an atmosphere where responsibility and authority and shared by everyone. You can be yourself. You have not to put your best forward to impress others. The school head do not throw his or her weight. He or she does not make his or her authority felt by his or her colleagues. Kapag sinabi natin collegiality, ito ay pagkakaisa at pagsunod sa prinsipyo na ipinapatupad sa direksyon ng overcoming authoritarianism at sariling isip sa pamamahala. Halimbawa, ang proseso ng pagtuturo. Ang pangkalahatang pamamahala ng aktibidad ay napakahalaga upang umasa sa kahusayan ng mga kasamahan sa organisasyon ng mga gawain na naglalayong sa pagbuo ng panuntunan sa pamamahala na sinusundan ng talakayan at pag-angkop na solusyon. Second is the experimentation. The atmosphere encourages experimentation and so welcome mistakes as part of learning process. No student, no teacher get punished for mistake. Mistakes are not intended. They give a lot of lesson. Referring to these 10,000 failed attempts, then he was experimenting in the light bulb. Edison said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." When we say experimentation, teaching is an intellectual exciting activity. Teachers are encouraged by administrator and colleagues to experiment with new ideas and techniques because that is how teachers and school improve. And they drop experiment that do not work and be rewarded for having tried. Third is high expectations. It has been sold one's level of achievement is always lower than one's level that aspiration, so set high expectation for high achievement. Two problems arise here. Robert J. Marzano warns us. First, expectations are subtitle and difficult to change. Teachers may be unaware that they have low expectation for some students. Even when they become aware, they may have difficult changing their expectation because their beliefs and biases have developed over the years. Second, what actually communicates expectation to students is teachers' behavior. If teachers consciously work to change their biases but don't change behavior toward those students from whom they have tended to expect less, their change of attitude will have little effects on students' achievements. So when we say high expectations, the teachers and administrators are held accountable for high performance through regular evaluation. And they are specifically expected to practice collegiality and to experiment with new ideas. Fourth is trust and confidence. The students, teachers, schools heads, and parents relate well and work well when relationships are solidly built on trust and confidence. In fact, honesty and open communication is possible only when there is trust and confidence in each other in the school community. I can share my inner thoughts only when I am confident that I do not get ostracized when I do. So trust and confidence are essential components of civil societies and social organizations. These two components also are very important in effective school communities. Confidence is what dominant people of power, teachers and parents have for subdominant people of power such as children and students. Trust is what subdominant people have in dominant people of power. Effective teachers have confidence their student can learn and trusting students believe that their teachers will not betray them. Teachers cannot educate students in whom they have no confidence, and students cannot learn from teachers whom they do not trust.
5. Tangible support. Everyone in the school community gets concrete support for the good that they do. Support comes in not just in words but in action. The school head sees to it that LCDs in the classroom are functioning.
When we say tangible support, people extend themselves to help with both time and resources. Indeed, when resources become scarce, professional development remains a priority. Around here, people believe that professional knowledge and skills of teacher are so important to good schooling that developing human resources is a high and continued commitment.
6. Reaching out to the knowledge base. Teachers care to grow professionally to update themselves on content, knowledge, and pedagogy, the first domain in the Philippine professional standard for teachers.
So there are generic knowledge bases about teaching skills and how students learn, about teaching method in particular areas, about young people's cognitive and effective development, and about each of the academic disciplines. These knowledge bases are practical, accessible, and very large. Teachers and supervisors are continually reaching out to them to improve their teaching and supervision.
7. Appreciation and recognition. Certainly, words of appreciation and recognition make classroom climate highly favorable. A reminder to teachers, you are not made less when you praise others. Instead, you become magnanimous, so don't be stingy with your sincerely praise. The problem sometimes is our eyes are so quick to see the negative and so we despise them immediately, but our eyes are blinded to the good and so we overlook them and fail to appropriate. 8. Caring celebration humor. Kids don't care what you know until they know that you care. They don't listen to teacher when teacher doesn't care. It may be good to remind teachers that many students, especially those who struggle, don't receive nearly enough positive feedback in the classroom or in their personal lives. When kids are taught with a practice praise heavy approach, they tend to do better, says Aaron Green of Boys Town. But the specific, generic, overly generalized comments such as good job don't really help. Complimenting a specific behavior, on the other hand, reinforce that particular behavior. 9. Involvement in decision making. Involving others who are concerned with decision to be made enhances sense of ownership. They also feel important. 10. Protection of what is important. What the school consider important must form part of their tradition and so must be protected by all means. In the activity above, mention was made on the school canteen policies that include no soft drinks, no chocolate, etc. and Clay go because the school considers nutrition and health cleanliness as important. Tradition. A school must have an intentional culture-based program on shared values, beliefs, and behaviors. This strengthens sense of community. A truly positive school culture is not characterized simply by the absence of gangs, violence, or discipline problem, but also by the presence of a set of norms and values that focus school community's attention on what is important and motivate them to work hard toward a common purpose. Honest and open communication. No one gets ostracized for speaking up his mind. The atmosphere is such that everyone is encouraged to speak his mind without fear of being ostracized. The agreement at every discussion is agree to disagree.
Shared norms, teacher and student norms. Shared norms for both teachers and students contribute to a positive school culture. Boss and Blamer 2018 share teachers' norm and student norm to contribute to form and engaging learning environment. A characteristic of a positive school culture, they check on the following norms each week. Now, let's proceed to application. Let's apply. Question number 1. Based on your experiences, give at least 10 school practices that don't contribute to positive culture. Based on my experience, the 10 school practices that don't contribute to positive culture are the following. First, teacher blames student for lack of progress. Second, teacher discourages collaboration. Third, stereotyping and biased environment. Fourth, tolerating bullying and discrimination. Fifth, lack of school and community partnership. Sixth, teacher favoritism. 7. Inconsiderate teacher. 8. Teacher-centered classroom. 9. Academic competition between students. 10. Lack of teacher encouragement. Second question. Are the following items good tips in building positive culture? Defend your answer. If it is not so good tip, replace it with good one. Letter A. No talking as a classroom rule number 1 imposed by teacher. The answer is no. It is not a good tip in building positive culture because this will limit the student capability to engage in classroom discussion process. It is okay to have a peaceful classroom environment. However, we should not compromise the students' engagement and freedom to talk by limiting them, such as to answer a question or ask for clarification. It's really important to give students an opportunity to express themselves, to get up and move around, to work in groups and pairs and discussion. Classroom should be vibrant, interesting, and exciting place to learn. That is why teachers should always be considerate in building classroom rules and procedures collaboratively and positively. The replacement tip: do not talk with your seatmate when the teacher is discussing. Just raise your hand if you want to answer or ask question. Let's check the understanding. Answer the following questions briefly. Number 1, what is school culture? Number 2, does school culture affect student learning? Explain. Number 3, cite at least 3 ways by which you, as a future teacher, can contribute to a positive school culture. Now, let's reflect. I learned that, I realized that, I was pleased that, I was not aware that. Taking it to the net. Is school culture also referred to as the hidden curriculum? Research on this and share your findings in the class. Let's clinchers. Number 1, which is true if school culture? Letter A, passed on like a hereditary trait. Letter B, created by the school head and other stakeholders. Letter C, has insignificant effect on the student performance. Letter D, cannot be altered. Number 2 questions. What contributes to a positive school culture? Letter A, growth mindset. Letter B, low expectation. Letter C, authoritarian leadership. And letter D, exclusivity. Number 3, which form part of school culture? 1, structures. 2, resources. 3, practices. 4, school climate. Letter A, 1 and 2. Letter B, 1, 2 and 3. Letter C, 2 and 3. Letter D, 1, 2, 3 and 4. Number 4. School head respect academic time so she doesn't just call on teachers during class hours. Which element of positive school culture is illustrate? Letter A, tradition. Letter B, collegiality. Letter C, protection of what is important. And letter D, high expectation. Number 5. Complete the analogy, a positive culture. Growth mindset, toxic culture. Letter A, inclusivity. Letter B, inclusivity. And letter C, resignation to failure. And letter D, teamwork. Takeaways. School culture is the character of a school that gives the school qualities beyond its structure, resources, and practices. It is created by all the people in the school. It is not inherited and so is not passed on through the genes. School culture includes school climate, and so school culture is broader than school climate. School climate is relational, while school culture is a deeper level of reflection of shared values, beliefs, and tradition. Undoubtedly, school culture affects learning, and so schools must by all means build positive, not toxic school culture.